I came down with an illness and had to be hospitalized for a long time. When I shared my anxieties with my husband, Donald, "I'll be there for our daughter, leave it to me," he replied with a smile. He used to be the type to wander about, but maybe this situation has awakened his sense of fatherhood. Trying to hold back tears of joy, I said, "Thank you. I'll be off then." And with a smile, I headed to the hospital, and when I returned home 2 weeks later, I found our 3-year-old daughter, Melissa, home alone. Thankfully, she seemed to be doing okay, but my anger reached its peak. I immediately called Donald to confront him. "Donald, where are you?" "I'm at the casino for an emergency." I could hear the distinctive sounds of a casino through the phone. I thought Melissa could handle herself, she's pretty sturdy. Plus, I'm at a good spot now, so I'm gonna hang up. Donald cut the call after saying that. I could only feel anger towards Donald, who only thinks of himself. And seeing Melissa's anxious face made my heart feel like it was being torn apart. Maybe Melissa doesn't need a father like that, I whispered to myself softly. In the next moment, I took action, holding Melissa in my arms. My name is Emily. I turned 40 this year. Currently, I live with my husband Donald and our daughter Melissa. I met Donald in college. We were in different departments but met through the student council. Donald was the president of the student council, and I was the vice president. We discussed how to make student life better and presented our ideas to the professors. Though many proposals were rejected, when one was accepted, we all shared the joy. It truly felt like our youth back then. Donald, being the president, was like the sun, always surrounded by people. Despite his tendency to fool around too much, I still found him very attractive back then. And so, I asked Donald out. "I like you, Donald. Would you go out with me?" "Sure." I was overjoyed when Donald said yes. After that, we dated frequently and got married right after graduating from college. Donald got a job in real estate sales, and I started working as an accountant at a food manufacturing company. It took us a while to be blessed with a child, but 3 years ago, we had our daughter, Melissa. For the sake of young Melissa, I vowed to do my best. Donald changed quite a bit after getting a job. He was always easily influenced by others, but it was okay in college because he was surrounded by decent people. However, the real estate company he joined was filled with highly competitive individuals. The turnover was high due to strict quotas, and those who remained were quite eccentric. It seemed like troublemakers who couldn't easily find jobs elsewhere stayed at this company. Donald's colleagues were into drinking, smoking, and gambling. Donald was drawn to the job because of the high salary advertised in the job posting. The company offered a high incentive ratio, suggesting that a $100,000 annual salary was not a dream. Donald was attracted to the high salary and took the job. However, achieving a $100,000 salary was only possible for a few. Most were unable to meet their quotas and had their base salaries cut, eventually leaving due to financial difficulties. Despite the obvious solution of quitting, Donald's pride prevented him from leaving. He just wouldn't quit his job. Even though he clung to his work, Donald could hardly ever meet his quotas. This led to Donald's stress piling up, driving him towards gambling for relief. Initially, he was taken along by coworkers, but gradually, Donald started gambling on his own. Now, every weekend, it's all about gambling for Donald. I've thought about divorcing him many times, but we have our daughter, Melissa. She's only 3, and surely needs her father around. With a sigh, I find myself waiting for Donald's return yet again today. Then one day, I was puzzled by the results of a health screening received at work. Further examination was needed. Despite everything else being fine, that one item required further scrutiny. I rushed to the recommended hospital for a thorough checkup. Praying for a week, I awaited the results, which turned out to be harsh. A serious illness was discovered. Moreover, a 2-week hospital stay was necessary for treatment. I was at a loss. Melissa is just 3, and it would be distressing for her to be away from her mother for 2 weeks. If her father was doting, maybe it could work, but her father is Donald. Donald has been rather disinterested in Melissa, leaving her care entirely to me since her birth. I've always been the one to take care of Melissa's meals, with Donald just focusing on his own plate. He's never even changed a diaper. When I absolutely couldn't and asked Donald, "I hate dirty diapers. Just leave it until you're free to do it. I'm in a good spot right now, so don't bother me," he complained, engrossed in his game. I remember being speechless at that moment. So, honestly, leaving Melissa with Donald for 2 weeks fills me with nothing but anxiety. My parents live far away, and Donald's are elderly, both in a care facility. It's not a situation where I can rely on anyone. After much thought, I decided to discuss it once with Donald. Anxiously, I waited for Donald to come home. "I'm home." Donald usually returns after 10 p.m. Slightly tipsy, in a good mood. I wondered if he could really take care of Melissa with such late returns. My worries grew. Melissa is currently in preschool, which requires pickup by 7 p.m. The preschool closes at 7 p.m. So far, I've been finishing work on time to pick up Melissa. But I wasn't sure if Donald could do the same. I approached Donald. "Hey, I need to talk to you." "What?" "I'm tired from work," Donald replied, seemingly bothered. I braced myself and showed Donald the re-examination paper. "What's this?" At first, he seemed not to understand, but as he read on, Donald's face seemed to stiffen. "The re-examination found an illness. I need to be hospitalized for about 2 weeks for treatment. I'm sorry, but could you take care of Melissa?" I was anxious about being refused. To my consultation, "Emily, you don't need to worry about anything. I'll be by Melissa's side. Just focus on getting better." He smiled and reassured me. I felt relieved at Donald's words. Donald had always been the type to go out, but perhaps this situation has sparked a sense of fatherhood in him. I was truly worried about what to do with Melissa during my hospital stay. So, when Donald readily agreed to take care of her, I was overjoyed, trying to hold back tears of joy. "Thank you. I'll be going then," I said with a smile and headed to the hospital. 2 weeks later, after a tough hospital stay, I came home to find 3-year-old Melissa home alone. Upon seeing me, Melissa ran over and cried intensely. Surrounding her were scattered bags of snacks and juice packs. Donald must have not cooked at all, just giving Melissa snacks. Fortunately, Melissa seemed healthy, but my anger reached its peak. I immediately called Donald to confront him. "Donald! Where are you?" "I'm at the casino for an emergency," came the distinct sound of a casino through the phone. "Why have you left Melissa alone? She's only 3 years old," I yelled into the phone, but Donald, unabashed, retorted, "I thought Melissa could handle herself. She's quite capable. Besides, I'm at a good spot now, so I'm hanging up." With that, Donald hung up. Fury boiled within me towards Donald, who only ever thinks of himself. I deeply regret entrusting Melissa to Donald, even if it was for a hospital stay due to illness. Seeing Melissa's anxious face made my heart feel torn apart. Maybe Melissa doesn't need such a father. I don't need him either, I muttered to myself. In the next moment, I took action with Melissa in tow. I immediately contacted my company to take a week off. My boss was reluctant to grant sudden leave, but agreed when I promised to handle urgent work from home. Donald would be at the casino for a while and not coming home soon. So, I needed to act quickly in his absence. I called a 24-hour locksmith and had the locks on our house changed. It was an urgent case, and while not a complex lock, it was enough to keep Donald out. I couldn't help but find the thought of Donald panicking at the door amusing. I get crazy just thinking about Donald like that. While changing the locks, I also packed mine and Melissa's belongings. Since the furniture and appliances were secondhand, there was nothing I wanted to take. And since I wasn't sure if we'd find a new place immediately, I decided to leave them behind. "Mom, are we going on a trip?" Melissa asked with a smile, seeing me pack the suitcase. After finishing packing, "Goodbye, Donald," I whispered. And so, Melissa and I left the home we had lived in for many years. Melissa and I then moved from hotel to hotel. There were times when hotel staff gently refused us, concerned about a child making noise. It was frustrating, but somehow bearable, knowing it was only until we found a new home. Eventually, we moved into a newer apartment suitable for families. Finding a place where Melissa and I could finally settle brought me immense relief. During this time, Donald repeatedly tried to contact me with calls and emails. "I can't get into the house." "Where are you?" "I'm hungry." Such voice messages were left. The emails were of similar content, inquiring about my whereabouts and his needs. He never asked about Melissa. There wasn't a single message that showed concern for Melissa. Any normal parent would first worry about their child. It's clear Donald has no real interest in Melissa, his own daughter. This sad reality only deepened my sorrow. I wondered what Melissa thought of her father. I called out to Melissa, who was eating a delicious pancake snack next to me. "Melissa, what do you think about Dad? Do you like Dad?" I regretted asking such a cruel question, realizing I had already distanced Melissa from her father, Donald. However, I couldn't forgive Donald for neglecting Melissa for gambling. Regardless of Melissa's feelings towards Donald, the outcome wouldn't change. Melissa replied with a sad face, "I don't like Dad. He never plays with me. And he only gives me snacks, never the curry I like." Hearing Melissa's response brought me a bit of relief. If Melissa had liked Donald, I would have felt guilty for separating them. But Melissa's response solidified my decision. Donald had indeed not taken proper care of Melissa. He's unfit to be a father. No more holding back against Donald. Donald can go to hell for all I care. I waited for Melissa to finish her pancake, then together, we headed to the lawyer's office. A few days after visiting the lawyer's office, my mobile phone rang. It was Donald. There had been many calls before, but this time was different. Ignoring him only led to calls every few minutes, showing his desperation. With so many calls, I couldn't take any other calls. Reluctantly, I answered Donald's call. "Hello? Emily, do you have any idea how many times I've called? The key doesn't work, and I received documents from the lawyer's office to my company today. What's going on?" Donald bombarded me as soon as I picked up the phone. He must be overwhelmed by one thing after another. Just imagining Donald's panic made me feel good. "Don't change the locks on my house without asking. It's despicable and contemptible," Donald spat out. Irritated by Donald's remarks, I shot back. "My house? Don't joke with me. That house is mine. It's in my name. Don't act all high and mighty on your measly salary. Besides, I plan to sell the house, so you can't live there anymore. Donald was speechless. Indeed, the house was in my name. When buying the house and taking out a mortgage, the real estate agent said it would be easier to approve if it was in my name. I work for a well-known major food manufacturer, familiar to anyone from its many TV commercials. Donald, on the other hand, works for a small, unknown real estate company. My salary is far higher than his. That's why the house was purchased in my name. After buying it, the mortgage payments were drawn from my bank account. Feeling it unfair to bear the cost alone, I had asked Donald to share the burden several times. But not once did Donald pay the mortgage. So, reluctantly, I had been paying it all along. I made my final declaration. Let's get divorced. You've seen the documents from the lawyer's office, right? My decision is final. From now on, any communication should go through the lawyer's office, as stated in the documents. I had no feelings left for Donald. So, divorce was the only option for me. Then, Donald suddenly became furious. What? Divorce? Why is this even a discussion? I will never agree to a divorce. Donald probably panics without my income. I was utterly dismayed by Donald's selfish thinking. When I remained silent, Donald, as if he had an epiphany, said, Right, Melissa. If we divorce, Melissa will end up with only one parent. Are you okay with making her a child without a dad? Don't you feel sorry for her? Donald laughed as if he had one. He must think bringing up Melissa's name would stop the divorce talk. However, I firmly stated without any disturbance. I don't need advice from someone who goes to the casino and neglects Melissa's care. A dad like that might as well not be around. Still, Donald was undeterred. Anyway, I won't be satisfied until we talk this out face to face. I absolutely won't sign the divorce papers. With that, Donald hung up. Face to face, huh? Well, I have things I want to say, too. I muttered softly. A week later, I was set to meet Donald directly at the lawyer's office, with Melissa accompanying me. Emily, long time no see. I've missed you. Donald greeted me with a smile. I couldn't stand Donald treating Melissa as if she were just an add-on. So, I decided to stick to the matter at hand. I want a divorce. And I'll take custody of Melissa. Then Donald, with a malicious smile, said, If we're divorcing, you owe me compensation. I'm generous, so I'll let you off with just $20,000. You work for a big company, so it should be easy for you, right? Even in this situation, Donald's mind was only on money, which appalled me. But for Melissa's sake sitting beside me, I couldn't afford to lose. I presented an A4-sized envelope to Donald. What's this? Donald looked puzzled as he took the envelope and began to read the documents inside, his face turning pale by the minute. How did you know I was cheating? Donald's voice trembled slightly. Melissa told me that you've been bringing girls home while she's alone. That a woman cooked for her, but she still likes mom's cooking best. I answered quietly. Indeed, Donald wasn't just indulging in gambling, he had been cheating too. Right after moving, Melissa happily. When I was home alone, Dad brought home some woman several times. She cooked for me, but I still like Mom's meals the best. Told me over dinner. I was irritated not just by Donald bringing his affair to our home, but also by exposing young Melissa to it. That's why, after hearing Melissa's story, I immediately asked a detective agency to investigate. The investigation by the detective agency was quick, and the results came out in just 3 days. This was because Donald had been living at his lover's house all this time. I had thought that Donald, being without money, would find it difficult to hop from hotel to hotel. So, I was expecting him to come crying back to me soon. However, unexpectedly, he wasn't in a desperate situation, probably because his lover was taking care of him. "Melissa, you shouldn't have talked too much." Donald lashed out at Melissa. Melissa was taken aback and teary-eyed. "Blaming Melissa is wrong since you're the one who cheated. Anyway, this settles it. We're getting a divorce. I'll be asking for alimony from you, Donald. And, of course, from your lover too," I said with a smile. Donald was sweating profusely. Cornered, Donald hastily apologized on the spot. "I was wrong, so please, let's not go through with the divorce and alimony. I won't cheat again. Can't we start over? Please." Donald begged for my forgiveness. But an apology at this point doesn't resonate with me at all. It's too late for anything. As far as I'm concerned, our relationship with you is over. I will be asking for alimony from you. And, of course, child support for Melissa is separate. Make sure you pay it. I answered with a smile. This can't be. Donald looked tearful and desperate. But suddenly, he looked at Melissa and, as if struck by an idea, said, "Right. Melissa, are you okay with Dad being gone? It'll be lonely with just Mom, right? Please tell Mom not to divorce Dad." Donald clung to Melissa as if seeing a chance. Despite never having acted like a father before, his confidence was truly baffling. After a moment's thought, Melissa said, "I don't need Dad. He doesn't care about me, and having Mom is enough. Why don't you go to that woman who was at our house?" Melissa conveyed this to Donald and then, "Right, Mom?" She sought agreement from me. Melissa's declaration of not needing Dad seemed to have an impact on Donald. Donald's shoulders slumped. Serves him right. It would be best if he was needed by no one from now on. Afterward, my divorce from Donald was finalized. Of course, I got custody of Melissa. I'm demanding $15,000 in compensation from Donald and his lover. If they don't pay, I plan to file a wage garnishment lawsuit. I've decided not to hold back at all. Also, I'm demanding child support from Donald. The double burden of alimony and child support must be tough, as Donald has been contacting me frequently. Could you please reduce the alimony? My salary has been cut again, and I'm barely making ends meet. After this incident, my girlfriend dumped me, and I've lost my place to live. I'm staying at the company, but I'm at my limit. Donald came to me with such a feeble voice. Donald's salary was low to begin with, and after paying alimony and child support, he would hardly have anything left. Especially if his salary has been reduced. However, I have no intention of being kind to Donald. It's your fault, so take responsibility for yourself. By the way, I'm going to the amusement park with Melissa soon. We're also planning a trip next month, so I'm very busy. So, don't contact me anymore. I cheerfully told Donald. Donald seemed quite frustrated to see me living happily. Probably because he's cornered, he must feel even more miserable. The only thing I'll do for you is sending you Melissa's photos. Be grateful. I said as much and hung up the phone. I haven't allowed Donald to see Melissa. Sending Melissa's photos a few times a year settles it. This was agreed upon with the involvement of a lawyer, convincing Donald. Donald is likely to lead a life struggling with money from now on. But this is all due to Donald's own doing. I think he should continue to live in suffering. As for me, my life hasn't changed much from before. Originally, Donald never took care of Melissa, and I've been raising her on my own all along. So, even after the divorce, the situation hasn't changed much. Melissa doesn't seem to mind not having a father. I'm happy with just you, Mom. She hugged me and said so. Leaving such a cute Melissa behind to indulge in gambling and affairs, Donald must be out of his mind. The results regarding my illness have been good. No relapses, and soon I'll be graduating from once every 2 months visits. Also, a buyer seems likely for the house, as the real estate agency contacted me. Although it's the house I've lived in for many years, I don't feel particularly sentimental. I hope it sells quickly. This divorce has been truly difficult, but having Melissa makes me happy. Mom, I love you. Hearing my daughter say that, I want to keep her cuteness all to myself from now on.